We've done renters' rights to a great extent up till now, so I thought what I would do tonight is just kind of do some reminders to make sure that you are on the right page, doing the right things at the right times. Basically, with your student tenancies that are going to start this summer, where they were signed prior to the 1st of May, the chances are there will be no reference in that tenancy agreement about your ability to use ground 4A to recover the property at the end. And for those of you who perhaps have missed one of the previous talks, ground 4A is for students where you need them out for the next lot of students going in. So what you need to make sure you do is serve a notice to all your tenants in the tenancies that you have agreed for the summer, but also don't forget the tenants who went in last summer and are there till the end of this summer. It won't be in their tenancy agreement either, so you're going to have to serve it to them as well. If you don't provide them with this notice, and again it's every tenant, you'll find that when you try to go to court, you won't be successful.
Can you do that by email, please?
Pardon?
Can you do that by email?
You can, provided you're going to get an acknowledgement back from the tenants.
But even if you were to post it, you wouldn't get an acknowledgement.
I don't disagree with the argument you're putting forward. The problem I have is judges don't always think logically and in the same way that we do. And you may well come across a judge who is swayed by this solicitor, barrister, saying that it didn't come and it went into their spam, they never saw it, and you can't do it. My advice would be, ideally, go and have a conversation with them. Take them round, get them all to sign to say that they've got it. Communication with tenants is very valuable.
It's just when it's a big house with 7, 8 of them,
It's harder.
it's hard to get them all in at the same time.
Yeah.
If you do it by DocuSign,
If you do it by DocuSign, you're getting a signature.
but they may not reply, but you'll know they've read it.
Well, my argument would be it's no different to your emails. And be careful, does the tenancy agreement say that you can issue notices by email, by WhatsApp, whatever, sort of first-class post, proof of delivery? I tend to say hand-delivered with somebody as a witness and photograph the hand pushing the envelope through the door so that you've got that evidence. Also bear in mind that your notice under 4A for the current students is 2 months, but next year it will be up to the 4 months.
Called a 3A?
Pardon?
For the 2-month period, I thought I called it a 3A.
No, under your grounds 4A. No, the 4A is your student ground. I've put in there an example of the kind of notice that you can send to your tenants. That if anybody specifically wants it, if you want to drop me an email, I'll send you the template.
Serve that now for the tenants leaving at the 30th of June.
Yes,
You can.
you can. You need to serve it now because come the 30th of June, if they don't move out, you won't be able to serve your ground, Section 8 4A. So you need to be doing it now. And again, what I would say to you is, by having the conversation with your tenants, you can kind of get a feel, are you going to be moving out at the end of June as planned? Or is there a problem? Are you wanting out earlier? I suspect that there will be a number of student tenancies which are due to end, the end of June, July, August, where you will be getting notice that they're leaving early because their studying has finished in May and they don't see why they need to pay rent for those months. I know one or two landlords, well, they're landlords, professional people in the area whose kids are at university and they're telling them to get on and do this now. So you're just going to have to suck it up and carry the hit for a couple of months. And this, I think, will become a bit of a feature going forward. I've put in a few snippets, just really reminders for you. Again, just remember, you can't take any rent off prospective tenants now until they have signed the tenancy agreement. You take the rent and they prove that they've given you the rent or they've transferred it to your account prior to the date of signing, you're going to be on a sticky wicket and there could be a rent repayment order heading your way.
Can I just ask on that? Something happened a couple of months back that made me think of this. What happens if you do a sign-up meeting before the tenancy starts because they're working shifts, they can't attend or whatever? So you sign the agreement, say, on the 28th, but the tenancy starts on the 1st.
That's fine. The Act says you can't accept rent before the tenancy is signed. So you can sign the tenancy 6 months before it's due to start and collect the rent. It's the date of signing that is the defining date in all this.
So you sign on the 28th and have the money on the 29th, but the tenancy doesn't start.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario, Jeff. You ideally want a bit of time. What you need to bear in mind is, if you leave it very close to the start date of the tenancy and they don't pay you, you are still going to have an obligation to hand over the keys on the first day of the tenancy because they got a bit of paper that says they have a tenancy on that property from that date.
What happens if you hit the meeting?
Hey?
And they do the transfer on the phone so you can see they've paid
Well,
and the agreement's on the table. How's the timing? If you'd signed it, then you see the payment.
all right, I'm going to sort of go off piste here, which is a bit unusual for me, isn't it? And suggest that maybe what we need to start thinking about is where they want to pay on the same day, that we start dating and time on the tenancy agreement that it was signed, so that there isn't any arguments. Well, you'll be able to go back, I think, to the bank to get the timing of the credit hitting your account.
I'm just thinking, the documents are on the table, signed, and then they don't transfer the money.
Well, if they don't transfer the money, you've still got to hand the keys over and it becomes a problem. The ones, because they've got a copy that you gave them when they signed it. But let's not go down that road, Jeff. Paul hasn't given me enough time to spend exploring your hypotheticals. Right. Bear in mind, you can take the deposit, and it's not a bad idea to take the deposit prior to signing, because then you can take the deposit protection certificate with you and get it signed at the same time instead of having to do it afterwards. And the most rent you're going to get is 1 month. None of this 12 months up front or anything like that. The grey area does come with the tenant says, can I pay you the full year's rent up front? And they want to give it to you, then that is their choice. But you cannot ask for it. So, sorry? You can accept it. It's never been, well, I'm going to qualify that. It's never been tested in court yet. Is that a fair way to put it, Charlie? It would appear that, yes, you can accept it, but again, if you can get something, they send you an email, can I pay you the full year's rent up front? You reply back, yes, if that's what you would like to do, and you hang on to that email for all your life's worth, because that then shows that you haven't asked for it, they want to pay it. And the deposit, maximum deposit, even if they've got as many pets as they want, you know, 4 Rottweilers, 3 cats and a couple of budgies, you're still only going to be able to take 5 weeks rent. Yeah, equivalent as a deposit. Something that hasn't perhaps been flagged very well is that tenants are going to be able to serve notice in whatever form they want. So although your tenancy agreement might ask for it in writing, if they don't want to give it in writing, that's their choice. They can send you a WhatsApp, an email, a letter, whatever. They can serve it however they choose. The only thing is, it's got to be for 2 months, and it must end when a rent payment is due. So ideally, the notice period ends on the day before the next rent is due or on the day the rent is due.
Is that going forward as well, Bruce, or is that just for this year?
Going forward?
So definitely next year it's got to comply with that?
Yeah. So everything we're talking about here, Andrew, is 1st of May 2026 onwards.
So can a tenant on your very first one move in on the 1st of July and give notice on the 3rd of July that they're moving out?
Yes.
So there's no minimum period?
There's no minimum period. They can give you that. It's got to be 2 months. So by giving you notice on the 3rd of July, effectively it's going to be near a 3 months notice.
Yeah. But that means the agents are going to be...
Well, agents aren't going to be unhappy because there's going to be fees kicking around. Landlords are going to be unhappy because they're having to pay more. And perhaps I can ask the question, who do you think is going to pick up the tab for this? Tenants. It's just going to push rents up again. But there you go. Where you get notice, just remind the tenants that the rent continues to be payable during the notice period. I'm presuming I've banged on about it enough. Everybody has served the government's prescribed notice to all their tenants.
Can I ask, does that have to be posted? You can't email it, you can't DocuSign it?
You need to be able to prove that they've had it, right? And received it. What they recommend is that you get an acknowledgement that they have received it. Those of you who use an agent, again, I'm sorry if I keep banging on about this, but for God's sake, make sure you double check with your agent that they have served that. Because if they haven't, you are up proverbial creek without the paddle if you need to get them out. So, just kind of make sure. If the tenant wants to cancel their agreement and it's a joint tenancy, then it will cancel the tenancy for everybody. If they then change their mind and come back to you in a few days and say, actually, we would like to stay on, you have the choice whether you accept it and do a new tenancy, or you say, I'm sorry, but I'm acting on that notice that you've given, you're going to have to move out.
All of that to move?
Sorry? All of them.
One gives notice.
It's a bit like the army. One gives notice, they're all out. Well, it's up to them to negotiate with you and for you to decide, are you going to give them a new tenancy just to the ones that's left? Are you going to look for a person to replace the leaving tenant? Well, I would suggest to you it becomes their responsibility, because if they don't find somebody, I'm sorry, but they are out with the guy who wants out.
Yeah, but depending on when they give the notice is the problem, isn't it? Because you're not going to get some students looking for a property, 4 students in the middle of
Well,
when
that, yeah, so that becomes the issue.
so
And
then we're going to really sign that 4 tenants, aren't we? If it's a 5-bed,
it's,
it would be stupid not to, otherwise we're not going to get a tenant.
yeah, it's one of those things, people, that it's kind of uncharted water. It's the law of unintended consequences. And you need to make a commercial decision. Am I better doing a new tenancy because you can't work on the old one? You're going to have to do a new tenancy for the remaining tenants going forward.
And you can't put the rent up at that stage.
And you can't change the rent either.
There's 4 people, 1 moves out, you've got to give 3 people.
Yeah,
And you're losing a quarter.
and you're losing.
If the rent was say £5,000 and there was 5 tenants, so they're all paying £1,000 each, one leaves. Surely if them 4 want to stay, the tenancy of the rent that was originally 5, the 4 would have to cover.
It depends how your tenancy is structured. Whether it specifies, because some tenancies will specify the rent is £5,000 per month, payable equally by each tenant, or something like that. But you don't have a normal tenancy anymore.
There's a husband and wife rented, decide to split up.
Aye, they're both out.
So that was that, yeah, right, okay. One, what happens if you decided for him to stay, then you can only charge him half the rent?
What I would say is, in a case like that, it would be, that is the rent on the house, and they would pay.
What
The market rent.
happens if they decided at the end of the term, they were going to move, and just said, right.
Well, the situation, if they don't, Tony, would you mind? I don't know. Some people are awful. No, if there is 2 of them, and one wants to leave, fine, you're left. And my experience would be husband and wife split up, husband moves out, the wife doesn't move out, is staying there because they haven't got anywhere else to go, and you're left with the problem. The problem now is no different to the problem you had 6 months ago. You're going to have to go through the legal process to recover the property. Yeah, you know, there's no magic wand that says we can get a tenant out willy-nilly. And if you start sending people around with black bags to help them move, I'm sorry, but you're going to end up in court for harassment.
I just add something that I was at a seminar the other day, and they suggested you can double the rent if the person stays when the other.
What I would suggest they are referring to is, if it is 2 people renting a property and the rent on the property, for sake of argument, is £500 a month, and one person takes it on, then they're taking it on at 500.
It wasn't what they were saying. They were saying
Well,
you double the rent.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to say yes or no on that one because I haven't come across that.
It's just something interesting.
If
they get that case, they won't want to look at that.
I somehow doubt it. And I'm going to come on to it in a minute, but in a scenario like that, I cannot see the tenant signing up because they want to have that house, but as soon as they sign up, they will put an appeal in about the rent because it doesn't cost them anything. just a few other bits. I've said it for a long time, but I think it's even more important. You must keep good records of your interactions with tenants. You know, phone calls, jot a note down, the date, the time, a synopsis of what the call was about. Because I can see that this will become quite important when you do get to court, if you have to go to court. And, I mean, it goes without saying, if there are repair issues, don't just backheel them, sort them, get them done. The quicker you do your repairs, the happier your tenant is, the more likely they are to keep paying the rent and living there. If you turn out to be a bad landlord because you don't want to do repairs, and we've all heard about them in the city, because thank you to them, that's why we have such widespread licensing in the city apparently. You know, it's not the right answer. And then what we've already talked about, get receipts for documents that you give them so that there's no arguments going forward. And if you've used an agent, again, ask them for evidence. If you have an agent, and this is something that is going to become more important as we go forward, is doing regular inspections on the property. A lot of agents will say they've been out and inspected the property, but do you know they've been? Did they find anything? And yeah, you hear stories where the tenant moves out and the place is in a state of disrepair, and it's obviously been like that for some time, and the agent has been out but has never reported it back. So it's a good idea to say to your agent, when you do your inspections, can I have just a written report on what you find, please? Just for my records, because I'm the one that's going to end up in court if there's a problem. In my experience of local councils, they are not as tolerant as the London Labour Council, who accepted Rachel Reeves' explanation that she misunderstood and didn't realise she needed a licence. Up here, you need a licence, you didn't get one, there's your fine. That's the way it's going to be. And again, just to remind people, GDPR, if you have any tenant details or whatever, you get a copy of the tenancy agreement, any documents, you must be registered with the ICO to comply with GDPR.
Is that even just a tenancy agreement?
If you have any information about somebody, then you have to be registered because you are handling personal information. So those of you who have a phone number for the tenant to, to arrange access, repairs, whatever, I would say arguably you should still be registered. My advice would be, as a landlord, you might as well be registered and covered. It's tax deductible. You may or may not know, but I sit on the property redress members panel, and I go down to wave the flag for the North East every so often, and I've put a little note down of some of the things that came up at the meeting I was at in the House of Lords, would you believe? Very disappointing though. We could do with a decorate. But councils across the country are starting to look more closely at how they can make money from the Renters' Rights Act by issuing fixed penalties because they get the money. So bear in mind, don't don't take chances, because the chances are you will not succeed. Some of you may recall last year I came across some figures that Newcastle Council was number 3 or number 2 in the country for issuing fixed penalties to people, the bulk of which were landlords or to do with property. And it is only going to get worse. And they will not accept, at least I don't anticipate that they will accept excuses. So just try and get it right. The landlord register that is coming would appear to be underfunded. And surprise, surprise, it's not going to link across to other sources of government information. So they're not going to be able to pick up easily if you're a landlord but you haven't registered, or certainly at the outset.
Bruce, is that the PRS database?
Yeah, so
That's what that is.
the landlord database that they're talking about.
Yeah. So in relation,
It hasn't come out yet, right? We haven't got the information yet. They're still working on it. Rachel, I don't think, has found the money to finish it off yet. They're also going to set up a property sector ombudsman who will be separate from property redress, the property ombudsman, things like that. And they will be run by a third party. And guess what? You're going to have to register with them as well. And the government are moving towards having all letting agents regulated across the country. So if you are a letting agent, then bear in mind that this is probably coming down the tracks before too long.
Bruce, can I just ask one quick question? 2 slides ago, it doesn't matter, it's the whole GDPR bit. Is that your advice or is that mandatory?
It is mandatory if you hold any personal information, which you all do, which is what I'm saying, then the rules say you have to be registered with the ICO for GDPR. I mean, it's an annual fee, and off the top of my head, I think it's 50 quid a year, but you do get a discount if you pay by direct debit. So, where are we? Just a reminder that your rent increases here on forward. Paul touched on making sure that your rents are right now, but you won't be able to increase your rent more than once a year. Your tenants are going to be able to challenge any rents for free. So make sure that they are reasonable and you haven't sort of loaded them. And when they do challenge them and it goes to a tribunal, the tribunal will ask for evidence to support why you are charging them at that level. So again, bear in mind what you're doing. And if you want to challenge the decision, or the tenant wants to challenge the decision, there's a cost of 47 quid and the tribunal can pass it on to the landlord regardless of the outcome. All right. So, again, I've touched on it. You've sent your notice to the tenants. You've sent your notice to current students and incoming students. If you've served at Section 21 because you've got a problem tenant, please remember you have only until the end of July to apply to the court to use that Section 21. After that, you are under the new rules. About the agents, and look at your rents. If it hasn't been put up for a while, when was 12 months ago, and put it up. I do keep saying this, with rents, have an annual conversation with your tenant. That conversation doesn't mean you have to put the money up, but it makes them realise that every year you are looking at it and it could go up. And that is part of the psyche and reducing the resistance to rises. Little requirement just to remind agents, but also landlords, why your agent might be checking with you, that they're all the details that the agent's got to do for you to comply with government rules and regs. And if you do your own lettings, you don't use an agent or whatever, you've still got to do all this, verify their identities, do the right to rent checks, assess the risk, make sure there aren't any suspicious transactions, anything like that. And it says there, if you're suspicious, you freeze the account, you sort of don't do anything else and report it. So that is about it. It's all reminders for you. And I hope you've all got in your diaries our all-day event on the 12th of November.